My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and until just 2 weeks ago, I was the perfect oldest daughter, the one who always did what was expected of her. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. My parents demanded that I give up all my life savings, $75,000 to help my younger sister, Emily, start her own business. When I refused, their words cut me deeply. "How can you be so selfish?" my mom snapped. "You've always been selfish. How dare you refuse to help your own sister?" I didn't yell back. I didn't argue. I simply stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out of their house without another word. This morning, I finally turned my phone back on. 6 missed calls, 6 voicemails, urgent. If you've ever felt trapped by family pressure, you'll understand what I'm about to share. My story might show you why sometimes the only way to truly be understood is to walk away. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. From a young age, I learned that being the oldest daughter came with one main job, responsibility. We lived in a small, 2-story brick house with a tiny backyard. It was cozy but modest, from as far back as I can remember. It felt like Emily and I were being raised under 2 completely different sets of rules. My parents were both teachers at the local high school. Because I was the oldest, they placed high expectations on me. "Sarah, you need to set an example for your sister," they would always say. That line became the soundtrack of my childhood. When I was 7 and Emily was just 4, I already understood what that meant. Other kids my age spent weekends riding bikes or having sleepovers. Me, I was expected to help with chores, watch over Emily, and maintain perfect grades. One evening when I was about 12, I remember asking my mum in frustration, "Why do I always have to wash the dishes while Emily gets to sit on the couch and watch TV?" Without even looking up from the stack of papers she was grading, my mum replied, "Because you're older, you need to learn responsibility. Your sister is still young." And that was it. This pattern never stopped. It followed us all through childhood. When I was in 6th grade, I wanted to join the school band. I loved music and dreamed of playing the piano in front of an audience. But when I asked my parents, they said no. "It will distract you from your studies," my dad said firmly. 2 years later, Emily announced that she wanted to take private dance lessons. Not only did my parents say yes, but they also rearranged their entire schedule to drive her to classes 3 times a week. I was happy for Emily, but inside, it hurt. Why was her passion encouraged while mine was dismissed? The differences even showed in our bedrooms. My room was filled with second-hand furniture and shelves of old classic books that my parents insisted would help my education. Emily's room. It was redecorated every few years with trendy furniture, colourful posters of pop stars, and even a TV she got for her 12th birthday. When I asked for similar things, my parents always gave the same answer: "We can't afford those extras, Sarah. You need to be practical." By high school, the differences between us became impossible to ignore. I got a part-time job at a local grocery store to save money for college. I even used part of my earnings to help with household bills. Emily. She got a weekly allowance without doing anything for it, while she spent weekends at the mall with her friends. I spent mine studying, working, and handling chores at home. My 16th birthday still sticks in my mind. All I wanted was a small get-together with a few close friends. Nothing fancy, but on the day of my birthday, my parents announced that we had to go to Emily's regional dance competition instead. "We can celebrate your birthday next weekend," my dad said, barely noticing how disappointed I was. That night, my birthday celebration ended up being a cheap store-bought cake eaten at 11 p.m. after we had already gone out to celebrate Emily's 3rd-place trophy at her favorite ice cream shop. "You're almost an adult now," my mum said when she saw the tears in my eyes. "Surely you understand that these opportunities are important for your sister's future." College applications made the favoritism even clearer. I had a 3.9 GPA, and spent countless hours doing volunteer work. I worked so hard, but when it came to choosing a major, my parents pushed me toward one they felt was safe. "I really want to study art history," I told them one night. My dad shook his head. "Art history is a hobby, not a career. Finance will give you stability." And just like that, the decision was made for me. Meanwhile, Emily was encouraged to chase whatever her heart desired. My parents spent thousands of dollars sending her to summer art programs while I worked extra shifts just to afford my college. Textbooks, she's different. My mum once told me when I questioned why things were so unequal, "Emily has a creative spirit that needs nurturing. You've always been more practical and independent." The irony of it all was that I was never given the chance to be anything but practical and independent. Despite the unfairness, I still loved my family deeply. Every time I felt the sting of being treated unequally, I told myself there must be a reason. Maybe my parents saw a kind of strength in me they didn't see in Emily. Maybe one day they would finally recognize my sacrifices. I threw myself into my studies, excelling in the finance program they wanted me to take. I worked 30 hours a week to keep my student loans as low as possible. When I graduated with honors, my parents congratulated me with a toast at dinner. "To Sarah," my dad said. "Always reliable, always sensible." It didn't feel like they were celebrating me as a person. It felt like they were just acknowledging that I was useful. Then my mum added, "Now you'll be able to build a stable future and help the family when needed." At the time, I didn't think much of those words. But looking back, I realized they foreshadowed everything that was about to happen. I smiled and nodded that night, completely unaware that those expectations would one day force me to make an impossible choice between my own dreams and theirs. The 3 years after college graduation were a blur at 22. I thought finishing school would bring me freedom. Instead, my life became a cycle of long days, late nights, and relentless pressure. I started working at Western Financial, a well-known firm in Chicago. My entry-level position was demanding, but it offered incredible experience and a chance to prove myself every weekday. I arrived at the office by 6:30 a.m. I spent the early mornings preparing reports before senior advisors arrived, then spent the rest of my day in client meetings and crunching numbers. 3 nights a week, I rushed straight from work to my MBA classes. Most nights, dinner came from a vending machine or a fast food drive-thru. "You're going to burn yourself out," warned Jessica, one of my closest friends and co-workers. She was probably right, but I couldn't stop. Every hour I wasn't working or studying felt like I was betraying my future. I wasn't just working for money, I was working to build independence. Something I'd craved my whole life. I didn't want to rely on anyone, especially my family. I wanted to prove to them and to myself that I could stand completely on my own. By 25, all that hard work started to pay off. I had completed my MBA, earned 2 promotions, and saved enough money for a down payment on my very first home, a tiny 1-bedroom condo in a quiet Chicago neighborhood. It wasn't much, barely 700 square feet, but it was mine. Every corner, every wall belonged to me. I painted the walls myself. I installed shelves for my growing book collection. And, for the first time since childhood, I bought a second-hand piano. When I was younger, I had begged my parents to let me take piano lessons, but they'd always told me it was a waste of time. Now, I could finally play without anyone telling me no. I became obsessive about my budget. Every expense was tracked in a detailed spreadsheet. Lunch, always packed from home, work, clothes, bought second-hand haircuts. Twice a year at a local beauty. School, where students practiced on volunteers. My one indulgence was coffee. I bought good coffee beans because, some mornings, they were the only thing that kept me going. At work, my reputation grew. Clients began specifically requesting me because I was good at explaining complicated financial concepts in a simple, no-nonsense By 27, other firms started reaching out with job offers. I leveraged those offers to get another promotion and a bigger salary. You never celebrate your wins. My friend Alicia told me one afternoon. We'd met at a charity event and quickly bonded over our shared love of hard work. You've worked so hard for everything you've achieved. You deserve to treat yourself once in a while, she urged. But what she didn't know was that I was treating myself, just not in the way she imagined. Every extra dollar I earned went straight into a special savings account labeled Future Business. My dream wasn't fancy vacations or designer clothes. My dream was to open my own financial consulting firm, one that focused on helping people like me, people who came from families with little understanding of money. I wanted to create a place where financial advice wasn't just about selling products. It would be about education and empowerment. While my friends were living in the moment, I was planning for a future where I could finally live life on my own terms. But no matter how much I built my own life, my family still had a way of pulling me back into old roles. Twice a month, I drove to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. The routine was always the same. My mum and dad would talk endlessly about Emily and her latest interests. They would nod politely when I mentioned my work, then quickly shift the conversation back to her. Emily's life was a constant roller coaster. After graduating from a small liberal arts college, she jumped from job to job. In 3 years, she'd tried for different careers. When she quit her marketing assistant job to try interior design, my mum said, "She's just finding her passion." Not everyone knows their path right away, like you did. The irony burned inside me. My path hadn't been my choice at all. It had been chosen for me. One Sunday, over dessert, my dad said, "Sarah, you should help Emily with her resume. Your business experience could really help her." "Sure, I'll help her," I said, offering support as always. But Emily never followed up. 3 months later, she quit interior design and decided to try photography instead. My parents paid for an expensive photography workshop even, though I knew their retirement savings weren't in great shape, when I gently suggested they should be more careful with their money. My mum dismissed me immediately. "Money is meant to be spent, Sarah," she said. "You save like there's no tomorrow. That's no way to live." I tried to explain the difference between planning for the future and being cheap, but they didn't want to hear it. In their eyes, Emily was creative and visionary, while I was rigid and boring. The words hurt, but I had grown used to swallowing my feelings, though I stayed quiet and focused on my own plans. By the time I turned 30, my special savings account had grown to nearly $60,000. I had calculated everything carefully to open my consulting firm properly with office space, software, licenses, and a few months safety net. I would need about $100 at the rate I was saving. I could reach that goal in about 18 months. For the first time in my life, my dream felt within reach. Then, one Tuesday evening, my phone rang. Everything began to unravel. It was my mum. Her voice sounded unusually excited. "Sarah, your sister has been working on something amazing," she said breathlessly. "We're having a special family dinner this Saturday to talk about it. You have to be there." "What's going on?" I asked, wary. "She's been planning a business idea for months," my mum gushed. "This could change everything for her." I agreed to come, but my heart sank. Emily had come up with big ideas before. They always started with excitement and ended with disappointment. Still, I told myself to keep an open mind. Maybe this time would be different. I marked the date on my calendar, rescheduled a client meeting, and tried to prepare myself to be supportive. I couldn't have predicted that this dinner would force me to make a choice that would change my entire life. Saturday evening arrived. The moment I walked up to my parents' house, I knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary family dinner. The smell of my mom's famous pot roast filled the air, and my dad greeted me at the door, wearing a button-down shirt instead of his usual flannel. "Come in. Everyone's waiting in the dining room," he said with unusual formality. That was strange. Normally, my mom would still be bustling around the kitchen while my dad and I chatted in the living room. When I stepped into the dining room, I saw my mom carefully setting out the good china, the plates reserved for holidays and special. Announcements. Emily was already seated at the table, her laptop open in front of her and a neat stack of presentation folders beside it. "Sarah," she said, jumping up to hug me. Her enthusiasm felt forced, almost unnatural. "I've been waiting all week to show you this," she said, practically glowing. I glanced at the folder sitting in front of my plate. My name was handwritten across the cover. Something in my gut told me this wasn't going to end well. Dinner felt different that night, tense, formal, like everyone was preparing for a big moment. Normally, family dinners at my parents' house were relaxed. Dishes were passed around the table, everyone serving themselves, conversation flowing freely. But that evening, everything was plated ahead of time, as if we were at a fancy restaurant. We ate quickly, chatting about unimportant things, the warm spring weather, a cousin's new baby, the neighbor's new landscaping. But underneath it all, I could feel it. The anticipation, the unspoken, something big is coming, energy hanging in the air. By the time dessert was served, my stomach was in knots. My dad cleared his throat and looked at me with a serious expression. "Your sister has something very important to share with us," he announced. His tone was full of pride, almost like he was about to introduce a celebrity. "We've already seen a preview, but she wanted to wait until you were here to show you everything." Emily stood up, moving to the head of the table like a CEO about to pitch investors. She opened her laptop with a dramatic flourish and smiled brightly. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady and confident. "I am so excited to finally share my vision with you. This is going to revolutionize the dating world. I call it HeartSync." For the next 20 minutes, Emily gave a passionate presentation. She described HeartSync as a revolutionary dating app that would use advanced technology to match people with almost perfect accuracy. "It's completely different from anything on the market," she said, pacing slightly like a motivational speaker. Her big idea. The app would use artificial intelligence to predict whether two people were truly compatible. Here's how it would work. According to Emily, users would take a detailed personality quiz. They would give the app access to their social media accounts and, most strangely, they would even record their pulse while looking at potential matches' photos. "The AI will analyze all this information," Emily explained, her eyes shining with excitement, "and it will be able to predict, with 98% accuracy, whether two people will have chemistry." She ended her pitch with a huge smile and a dramatic hand gesture. "It's going to eliminate the guesswork of dating," she declared. My parents burst into applause like she had just announced a cure for cancer. "Isn't this incredible?" My mum gushed, turning to me with wide, expectant eyes. I forced a polite smile. "It's definitely ambitious," I said carefully. "May I ask a few questions?" "Of course," Emily said eagerly. "I've anticipated most concerns in my business plan." I nodded and flipped open the glossy folder with my name on it. My years in finance had taught me to look for specifics, and immediately I noticed there weren't many. "Who's developing the AI component?" I asked, my tone calm but serious. "That kind of technology requires specialized skills." "Oh, I'll hire developers," Emily said with a wave of her hand, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "The important part is the concept, which is 100% mine." "Have you done market research?" I pressed. "The dating app industry is already saturated and dominated by big companies with millions of users." Emily's smile faltered slightly. "My concept is different," she insisted. "No one else is doing the biological marker thing. It's unique, because it might raise privacy concerns," I said gently. Have you spoken to a lawyer about data collection laws and user privacy? Before Emily could answer, my dad cut me off. Sarah, your sister doesn't need to focus on problems right now. She's sharing an exciting opportunity. I kept my voice even. I'm just asking the questions any investor would ask. My mum leaned forward, her smile almost too bright. The exciting part is that we're moving forward with this, she announced. Your father and I have already committed $50,000 from our retirement fund to get things started. I nearly choked on my coffee. $50,000? I asked, stunned. That's a huge part of your retirement savings. My dad didn't even flinch. Some things are worth the risk, he said firmly. We believe in Emily's vision. Emily beamed at them like a little girl being praised for a perfect dance recital. Then she turned to me. And that's where you come in, she said sweetly. I froze. What do you mean? Emily's tone became serious. I need $75,000 more to secure a development team and launch a marketing campaign. With your help, we can make HeartSync a success. The room went silent. The number she'd just said echoed in my head. $75,000. Almost exactly the amount I had saved over the past several years for my own dream, the consulting firm I'd been working towards since college. It was like she had somehow reached into my heart and ripped my future right out of it. That's a significant amount, I said carefully. Have you spoken to professional investors? They'll want too much control, Emily said dismissively. This needs to stay in the family, so we can all benefit when it succeeds. I flipped through the folder in front of me. It wasn't a real business plan. There were no financial projections, no market analysis, just a lot of conceptual ideas and some mock-up designs. Emily said gently, without solid numbers and a real plan, it's hard for any investor, family or not, to evaluate this properly. My mum let out a frustrated sigh. Not everything can be reduced to spreadsheets, Sarah. Sometimes you just need to have faith in the people you love. I do believe in Emily, I said, but even the best ideas need structure. I'd suggest starting smaller, maybe create a prototype first, or test the concept with a focus group before investing so much money. We don't have time for baby steps, Emily snapped. Her voice rose, sharp and impatient. This market moves fast. If we wait, someone else will steal the idea. Then venture capital might be the right path, I suggested calmly. That's literally what they do, fund high-risk, high-reward projects like this. Emily's eyes narrowed. You just don't want me to succeed. You've always been jealous of me, jealous that I go after my dreams while you play it safe. My mouth fell open. That's not true. I'm trying to help you approach this professionally. If you were really supportive, my dad interjected, you wouldn't be questioning her at all. Your sister needs your help, not your criticism. It's not criticism to ask basic questions before investing $75,000. I said firmly, my heart pounding. That's years of saving for me. My mum's voice hardened. And what are you saving for? That's more important than helping your sister, I hesitated. I had never told them about my dream. Finally, I said, I've been saving to open my own financial consulting practice. I'm less than 2 years away from reaching that goal. There was a moment of silence. Then Emily actually laughed. A financial consulting practice? Seriously, she scoffed. You'd put something boring like that ahead of a revolutionary tech startup. This is why I didn't want to ask you for help. My dad leaned forward. Your practice can wait, he said dismissively. This opportunity won't. You can always rebuild your savings after HeartSync succeeds. And in that moment, I saw it clearly to them. My dream didn't matter. My goals didn't matter. The money I had worked so hard to save wasn't mine. It was just a family resource, something they could take whenever they needed it. They weren't really asking me. They were expecting me to hand it over. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I sat there, staring at my family, realizing they had already decided my future without even asking me. My mum and dad looked at me like I was being unreasonable for even thinking about saying no. Emily, on the other hand, had a glint in her eye, mix of expectation and entitlement as if this whole thing was already settled. I took a slow breath, trying to stay calm. "I can't give you $75,000, I said firmly, my voice steady even though my hands were trembling under the table. The air went still. "My entire future depends on that money," I continued. "And honestly, Emily, your business plan isn't ready for that level of investment." For a second, no one said anything. Then my dad's face turned red, a vein pulsing at his temple. "How dare you refuse to help your sister after everything this family has done for you?" he shouted. Years of buried pain rose to the surface. My voice cracked as I shot back, "Everything you've done for me. Are you serious? What exactly have you done that I haven't already repaid 10 times over?" My mum's lips trembled, her voice sharp and accusing. "We raised you. We educated you. We supported you all these years. And now, when we need your help, you turn your back on us." "I'm not turning my back on anyone," I said, my throat tight with emotion. "I'm saying that this investment doesn't make sense. I'd be happy to help Emily in other ways, like helping her refine her business plan, connecting her with actual investors, or even contributing a smaller amount to build a prototype first." Emily scoffed loudly, rolling her eyes. "A smaller amount," she sneered. "Like what? A couple $1,000s. That won't even cover the initial design work." "Maybe," I said evenly, "that's a sign that the concept needs to be tested on a smaller scale before you risk hundreds of thousands of dollars." "There you go again," my dad barked, slamming his fist on the table. "Always thinking small, always doubting. Your sister thinks big. That's why she's going to be successful while you sit there counting pennies for the rest of your life." Each word felt like a punch to the chest. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about me. To him, my careful planning wasn't a strength. It was a weakness. And then my mum said the word that shattered me completely. "You've always been selfish, Sarah," she said coldly. "Always keeping score, always holding back." I froze. "Selfish?" I repeated, barely able to believe my ears. My voice trembled as I spoke. Years of pent-up anger spilling out. I started working at 16 to help pay for household bills. I chose the college major you wanted me to take, not the one I wanted. I visit every week, help with house repairs, never complain, and never ask for anything in return. How, exactly, does that make me selfish? A heavy silence filled the room. Then my mom glanced at my dad, her expression tight. "You want to know the truth about your college fund?" she said softly. My dad shot her a warning look. "Mary, don't." But she kept going, her words slicing through me like a blade. "The money your grandparents left specifically for your education. We had to use it. Isabel's dance competitions, her summer programs, they were expensive. We always meant to replace the money, but we never could." My whole body went cold. "Wait," I said, barely able to form the words. "Are you telling me you stole my college fund? The money meant for me?" My mom's chin quivered. "We didn't steal it. We just borrowed it." My dad tried to defend their decision. "Emily needed those opportunities. She's always been the one with the bright future in this family." The words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. My stomach turned, bile rising in my throat. All these years, I had told myself I was imagining the favoritism, that deep down, my parents loved me and Emily equally. But now, in one unguarded sentence, my dad confirmed what I had always feared. Emily was the golden child. Emily's dreams mattered. More. Emily was worth sacrificing everything for. And me, I was just useful, the responsible daughter. The one who held everything together while they poured all their energy and resources into my sister. I looked at Emily, hoping for some sign of guilt or shame. Instead, she smirked. It wasn't a kind smile. It was smug, triumphant, like she had. My chest felt like it was caving in that moment. Something inside me snapped. I finally saw the truth. I had never been equal in this family. I never would be. Memories flashed through my mind like a cruel slideshow. Birthdays forgotten or delayed because of Emily's dance competitions. My accomplishments brushed aside with a polite good job before they turned back to talk about Emily's latest project. Sacrifices I had made, not just accepted, but expected. As if they were nothing more than my duty. The message had always been there. Unspoken but clear. Emily matters more. Emily deserves more. Emily is more. And now, they wanted me to give up my dream, my one chance at freedom and independence too. Fund yet another one of Emily's impulsive ideas. Not because it was a smart investment. Not because it would help me but simply because Emily wanted it. And if I said no, I would be the villain. The ungrateful, selfish sister. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. I need to leave, I said quietly, my voice trembling but firm. That's it? My mom asked in disbelief. You're just walking away? Yes, I replied, surprisingly calm. There's nothing more to say. I will not be investing in HeartSync. My dad's face twisted in anger. You've always abandoned your sister when she needed you most. Always too busy chasing your own selfish dreams to support hers. I met his gaze evenly. And you've always abandoned me in favor of her, I said softly. The difference is, I've stopped expecting anything different. I picked up my purse, tucked the untouched business folder under my arm, and walked toward the door. No one followed me. No one called my name. The silence was louder than any words. When I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief, the weight I had been carrying my whole life, the responsibility, the guilt, the constant need to prove myself, was finally gone. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and tears. By the time I reached my condo, a plan was already forming in my mind. The very next morning, I went to my boss's office. I need to take a personal leave, I said, my voice steady. She looked up in surprise. Sarah, are you okay? This isn't like you. It will be, I assured her. I just need some time to reorganize my life. That afternoon, I called a real estate agent in Seattle, a city I had visited once for a conference and fallen in love with. By evening, she had sent me a list of available apartments. I spent the night researching neighborhoods, job opportunities, and moving logistics. By Wednesday, I had submitted rental applications. By Thursday, I was approved for a tiny studio apartment. By Friday, I had scheduled movers to pack up my condo and put the rest of my things in storage. Through all of it, my phone stayed silent. No calls from my parents, no texts from Emily. They hadn't even noticed. I was gone. That silence told me everything I needed to know. 1 week after that explosive dinner, I boarded a plane with just 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. As the plane lifted off, I stared out the window, watching the Chicago skyline fade beneath the clouds. I wasn't just leaving my family behind. I was leaving behind the version of myself they had shaped, the dependable daughter who always fixed their problems, who always gave and never received. By the time we landed in Seattle, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I didn't know a single person there. I had no safety net, no plan beyond the next few days. But for the first time in my life, the future felt like mine. Seattle greeted me with rare sunshine, the golden lights bouncing off the water as the plane taxied to the gate. I dragged my suitcases to my new studio apartment in the Ballard neighborhood, 20 minutes from downtown. It was tiny, barely 500 square feet, with a small kitchenette, and a view of a brick wall, but to me, it represented something priceless. Freedom. I spent the first few days setting up the apartment, ordering a cheap bed frame and mattress online, picking up basic groceries, learning how to navigate the city buses and light rail. It was all practical, simple stuff, but every little task felt like a step toward building a new life. Through it all, my phone stayed turned off, tucked in a drawer like a relic from another life. The only person I stayed in touch with was Jessica, my closest friend back in Chicago. I sent her an email from a new account I had set up, explaining what had happened in vague terms. "I need a fresh start," I wrote. "Please don't share my new address or email with anyone. I'll reach out when I'm ready, but for now, I need space to think." Her response came quickly. "Take all the time you need. Your family has taken advantage of you for years. Just check in occasionally so I know you're safe." Her support gave me comfort. For the first time, someone understood without judgment. By the end of the first week, the busyness of moving had faded, and the reality of what I'd done started to sink in. One afternoon, I sat at a small cafe near Pike Place Market, sipping a latte and staring out at the ferries crossing Elliott Bay. For the first time since leaving Chicago, I let myself really think about it all. I hadn't just left after an argument. I had uprooted my entire life and my career, my home, my identity, and moved across the country completely alone. The fear hit me hard. Had I overreacted? Should I have tried to talk things through one more time before walking away? Doubt crept in like a shadow. Then I remembered my father's words from that night. "Emily has always been the one with the bright future in this family." 32 years distilled into one sentence. That wasn't anger speaking. That was the truth they had always believed. And in that moment, my doubt evaporated. No, I hadn't overreacted. For once in my life, I had finally reacted appropriately. "Mind if I sit here?" The voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see a woman around my age, balancing a cup of tea and a laptop bag. She gestured to the empty chair across from me. "The place is packed." "Of course," I said, grateful for the distraction. She smiled warmly as she sat down. "I'm Olivia," she said, extending her hand. "I live in the blue Victorian across from your building, the one that's been converted into apartments." My eyes widened. "Oh wow, really?" "I just moved into the brick building across the street." "Ah, so you're the mystery neighbor." She laughed. "Chicago accent, right?" I blinked. "Is it that obvious?" "My brother lives there," she said with a knowing grin. "I recognize the way you say certain words." We both laughed, and something inside me loosened. It had been a long time since I'd laughed freely like that. As we chatted, Olivia's kindness felt like sunlight after a long winter. She didn't pry, but she had a way of making me feel comfortable enough to open up just a little. I needed a change, I admitted. A big one. Her expression softened. "Sometimes a geographical cure is exactly what you need," she said. "Seattle's a good place to start over. People here don't ask too many questions." Her words felt like a blessing. From that day on, Olivia became my first real friend in Seattle. She showed me around the city, hidden bookstores, tucked into narrow alleyways, farmers markets filled with fresh produce and local art, quiet beaches where we'd sit with takeout Thai food, watching the sun dip behind the Olympic Mountains. For the first time in years, I started to feel like I belonged somewhere. 3 days after meeting Olivia, we were sitting on a driftwood log at Golden Gardens Beach, watching the sky turn orange and purple. She glanced at me and said, "You've never mentioned your family." I stared at the horizon, unsure how to answer. "That's intentional," I said finally. "Fair enough," she replied. Letting it drop. After a pause, she asked, "Have you found work yet?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I've sent out a few applications and I have interviews coming up. But right now, I'm just figuring things out." Olivia nodded knowingly. Sounds like this move was about more than just a job. She was right. For the first time since college, I wasn't living for anyone else's expectations. I wasn't the responsible daughter. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the backup plan. I was just me. I started filling my days with small joys I had never allowed myself before. Mornings were spent exploring my new neighborhood, discovering quirky coffee shops and street art. Afternoons were for reading books I'd always wanted to read, but never had time for. Evenings, I journaled, pouring out feelings I'd buried for years. One night, I wrote something that hit me hard. I don't even know who I am when I'm not responsible for everyone else. What do I actually enjoy? What matters to me, beyond meeting obligations and saving for some future that never comes? The questions felt strange, almost selfish, echoing the very word my mother had used to hurt me. But slowly, answers began to emerge. I discovered that I loved classical music. Back in Chicago, I never went to concerts because tickets felt like an unnecessary luxury. In Seattle, I learned the symphony offered cheap last-minute tickets. The first time I went alone, I sat in the balcony listening to a live performance of Rachmaninoff. By the second movement, tears streamed down my face. I had forgotten what it felt like to be moved purely for myself, not because someone expected me to perform, achieve, or sacrifice. I also began cooking again. Before, meals had always been practical and efficient. Fuel, nothing more now. I spent Sunday afternoons experimenting with recipes. Olivia would come over to taste test my creations, and we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. Cooking became fun, again not a chore, but an act of creation, and most surprisingly, I discovered sailing. One Saturday, I signed up for a beginner sailing lesson at a local community center near the marina. The first time I steered a small sailboat across the water, something inside me shifted. The precision of it appealed to my analytical mind, tying knots, reading the wind, adjusting the sails. But the unpredictability, the way the weather and currents could change in an instant, challenged my need for control. It was thrilling. For the first time in my life, I wasn't managing anyone else's chaos. I was simply present, alive. 10 days after arriving in Seattle, I turned on my laptop to check emails. There was one from Jessica. The subject line made my stomach drop. Update on Emily. I opened it with shaky hands. Thought you should know, Emily's startup fell apart yesterday. The investor she was counting on backed out after reviewing her business plan. Your parents are upset, but they aren't reaching out to you directly. They think you'll call them eventually. Are you okay? Asterisk, asterisk. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. So it had happened just like I'd warned them. Emily's dream had collapsed, and now I was the only one who hadn't been dragged down with it. I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, I need more time. For once, I wasn't rushing to fix everything. For once, I was putting myself first. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of rain, tapping softly against my apartment window. Seattle was living up to its reputation with grey skies and steady drizzle. I sat on the edge of my bed, sipping coffee and thinking about Jessica's email from the day before. Emily's startup had collapsed. Part of me felt vindicated, seen it coming from a mile away. But mostly, I just felt sad. I didn't want my sister to fail. For all our differences, she was still my sister. But I also couldn't ignore the truth. She had been reckless, and my parents had enabled her every step of the way. And now, the fallout was here. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't turn on my phone. I didn't send an email. I wasn't ready to be pulled back into the storm. For once, I needed to think about what was best for me before rushing to save everyone else. That afternoon, I took a long walk through the Ballard neighborhood, trying to clear my head. Seattle felt so different from Chicago. The salty air from the nearby bay, the narrow streets lined with coffee shops and bookstores, it all felt like a clean slate. For a few hours, I let myself forget about everything back home. But when I returned to my apartment and checked my email again, there was a new message from Jessica. The subject line was short and chilling. "You need to know this." I clicked it immediately. Asterisk, Sarah. Emily is telling everyone that your parents invested their entire retirement fund into her startup after the other investors backed out. She also says they took out a second mortgage on the house to cover expenses. Things are apparently really bad. Please don't feel obligated to fix this. You've done more than enough. But I thought you should know what's happening. Asterisk, my vision blurred as I read the words, "My parents, risking everything." I gripped the edge of the counter, my knees weak. Even after all the arguments, I had never wanted this. I hadn't wanted them to lose their home or their security. My heart raced as guilt and anger collided inside. Had my refusal to fund Emily's dream pushed them to do something desperate? For 2 weeks, my phone had been silent, powered off in a drawer. Now, my finger hovered over the power button, trembling. I knew that once I turned it on, there would be no going back. Part of me wanted to leave it off forever, to keep the peaceful bubble I'd built here in Seattle intact. But another part of me knew I couldn't hide forever. My parents were still my family, even if they had hurt me, and if they were truly in crisis, I needed to know the truth. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the button. The screen lit up instantly, a flood of notifications pouring in. My phone buzzed, continuously on the counter, rattling against the surface like an angry hornet. 6 missed calls, 6 voicemails, dozens of text messages, all from my family. I stared at the phone. Frozen, the buzzing felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. Finally, when the notifications stopped, I picked it up with shaky hands and opened the voicemail inbox. 6 messages, in order. The timestamps alone told a story. The first was from 3 days after I left Chicago. The last one was from just yesterday. I pressed play on the first message. Emily's voice filled the room, sharp and angry. Asterisk, Sarah, where are you? Nobody can reach you. Your job says you took a leave of absence. Are you seriously hiding because we asked you for help? The investors are getting nervous because we don't have enough capital. This is your fault. Call me back immediately. Asterisk, there was no concern for me. No asking if I was okay. Just blame, demands, as if my only value was what I could provide financially. I deleted the message and moved on to the second voicemail. My mum's voice came through next. Soft but laced with guilt. Asterisk, Sarah. Honey, we haven't heard from you in nearly a week. We're getting worried. I know things got heated at dinner, but families fight sometimes. Please call us and let us know you're okay. Your sister really needs your support right now with her business. Call us, please. Asterisk, the words might have sounded caring to anyone else, but I knew my mum too well. Her concern was always a tool to pull me back in. Even in this message, the focus wasn't really on me. It was on Emily and her failing venture. I clenched my jaw and skipped to the third message. My dad's voice thundered through the speaker, filled with frustration. Asterisk, this disappearing act is childish and irresponsible. Sarah, you have obligations to this family. Your sister's business partners are asking questions about funding, and we told them you would be contributing. Now we look foolish. This silent treatment needs to end. Call your mother. She's worried sick. Asterisk, my stomach twisted. Obligations. Was the word he always used whenever he wanted me to sacrifice something. Not love. Not care. Obligation. As if my entire existence was a debt I could never fully repay. I took a deep breath, skipping to the fourth message. This one was from Emily again, but her tone was completely different. Gone was the anger and entitlement. In its place was fear. Asterisk, Sarah. I don't know if you're getting these messages. I really need to talk to you. The investors backed out yesterday. They said the business plan wasn't viable, and the market is too saturated. You were right about everything. I should have listened to you. Please call me. I don't know what to do. Asterisk, my throat tightened. I didn't take any joy in hearing her admit I'd been right. For the first time, Emily was facing failure head-on without anyone there to shield her. And even after everything, she was still my little sister. I couldn't ignore the fear in her voice. But before I could process it, I pressed play on the 5th message. This one sent ice through my veins. It was my mum, and her voice was trembling, almost hysterical. Asterisk, Sarah, please. Please call us. Your father had a stress attack last night. The doctors say it wasn't a full heart attack, but he's in the hospital for observation. We've lost everything. The retirement money is gone, and we might lose the house. I don't know what to do. We need you. Please come home. Asterisk, my hand shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. My dad was in the hospital. Their financial ruin wasn't just bad, it was catastrophic. I pressed play on the final voicemail with a sick feeling in my stomach. Emily's voice broke repeatedly as she spoke, sobbing between words. Asterisk, Sarah, I really messed up after the investors pulled out. I convinced Mom and Dad to put up the house as collateral for a business loan. Now the bank is threatening foreclosure. Dad blames me. Mum can't stop crying. They're fighting constantly. I never meant for this to happen. I just wanted to make everyone proud. Please help us. You're the only one who knows how to fix financial problems. We'll listen this time. I promise. Asterisk, when the message ended. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I set the phone down and walked to the window, staring at the rain-soaked brick wall outside. My first instinct was to pack a bag, book a flight to Chicago, and pour every penny of my savings into rescuing them. That had always been my role, the fixer, the reliable one. But as I stood there, breathing deeply, I forced myself to pause. If I rushed back now, what would happen? The same pattern would repeat. Emily would take risks without consequences. My parents would enable her behavior, and I would be expected to clean up the mess. Nothing would change. The cycle would just keep spinning until there was nothing left of me. I grabbed my phone and called the hospital. My mum had mentioned. A nurse answered, and after some verification, she checked my dad's records. He was admitted 2 days ago with chest pains, she explained, but the tests came back normal. It wasn't a heart attack. His blood pressure was extremely high, so we're keeping him for observation, but he should be released tomorrow with medication and follow-up care. Relief flooded me. My dad's situation was serious, but not life-threatening. At least there was that. Next, I called Jessica. Can you discreetly find out how bad their finances really are? I asked. I'll try, she said immediately. My cousin works at First Midwest Bank. He might be able to get me some general information. 2 hours later, she called me back. It's not great, she said cautiously, but it's not as bad as they made it sound either. She explained the numbers. They took out a second mortgage for $75,000 about 10 days ago, along with the $50,000 from their retirement savings. They'd invested about $125,000 total into Emily's startup. The house was worth around $300,000, so they weren't upside down yet, but they were deeply overextended. I closed my eyes, absorbing the information. They weren't ruined, but they were dangerously close. Thank you, I whispered. What are you going to do? Jessica asked. Gently, I stared out the window at the rain-soaked streets of Seattle. Not what I would have done 2 weeks ago, I said finally. It's time to handle this differently. After I hung up with Jessica, I sat at my small dining table, my phone resting beside me 2 weeks ago. The moment I learned my parents were in trouble, I would have booked a flight, rushed home, and done whatever it took to fix everything, even if it meant draining every last dollar of my savings. But now, I saw things differently. This wasn't just about a failed business or bad financial decisions. This was about decades of patterns. If I swooped in with money and solutions yet again, nothing would change. Emily would keep taking risks, my parents would keep enabling her, and I would keep losing myself while trying to clean up their messes. I refused to repeat that cycle. This time, I would help, but only in a way that set clear boundaries. Opened my laptop and started making calls. The first was to a financial advisor in Chicago who specialized in retirement recovery. He listened carefully as I explained the situation, then said, I can help them explore options to rebuild their retirement funds and stabilize their finances, but will need full documentation of their assets and debts. Understood, I replied. I'll arrange a meeting. Next, I called a real estate attorney to discuss the second mortgage and potential foreclosure. She confirmed that there were steps we could take to prevent my parents from losing their house, but time was critical. Finally, I spoke with a family therapist who specialized in high-conflict family dynamics. Even though she wasn't in Chicago, she offered to do video sessions without addressing the underlying emotional issues. She said gently, you'll just keep cycling through crises. The financial problems are a symptom of a much deeper pattern. Her words struck a chord. She was right. This wasn't just about money. It was about the roles we had all been playing for decades. How destructive those roles had become. By the time the sun set, I had a plan. That night, I emailed my new boss at Cascade Financial. I had been offered the job only days before and was supposed to start on Monday, but I knew I needed to delay. Family financial crisis, I explained briefly. I need a flexible start date. To my surprise, her reply came almost immediately. Take the time you need. The position will be waiting for you when you're ready. Family comes first. Those words, family comes first, made my chest tighten. How? Many times had my own parents used that exact phrase to guilt me into giving up my dreams. But this time, I would define what it meant on my own terms. Once I felt calm, I composed a carefully worded email to my parents and Emily. I used my new email address, the one they didn't know about until now. I've received your messages and understand the seriousness of the situation. I am safe and well. I needed space to reassess our family dynamics after our last interaction. I am willing to help, but not in the way I have in the past. I've arranged for a meeting with financial advisor Robert Williams on Monday at 2 p.m. at his Chicago office. I will join via video conference. Please bring all financial documents related to the house, retirement accounts, and business loan. This meeting is the first step toward resolving the immediate crisis. Further assistance will depend on our conversation. During that meeting, I included Robert's contact information and the office address, then pressed send before I could second-guess myself. For the first time, my help would come with structure and boundaries. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. From my mum, I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, her voice was tearful but relieved. Oh, Sarah, thank God. We were so worried. Please call me. We'll do whatever you want. Just talk to us. Her desperation tugged at my heart, but I stayed firm. I replied with a simple text. I'm not ready for a direct conversation yet. Please focus on gathering the financial documents for Monday's meeting. We'll talk then. Setting boundaries felt strange, almost unnatural, but necessary. This was the only way to break the old cycle. The next day, Sunday, I spent hours reviewing the information Jessica had gathered and combining it with my own financial expertise. Built a clear picture of my parents' situation. It was bad, but not hopeless. With immediate action, they could avoid foreclosure. Their retirement fund was nearly empty, but careful budgeting and restructuring could help them rebuild over time. The house was still worth more than what they owed, giving us leverage. I even drafted several potential solutions to present at Monday's meeting. Restructuring the mortgage to lower monthly payments, selling the house and downsizing to eliminate debt entirely, bankruptcy protection as a last resort, a structured family loan, where I would provide limited funds but with legal agreements and repayment terms. The key difference was that I would not simply hand over money and disappear if I got involved. It would be as a financial professional, not as the family doormat that night. As I prepared for bed, I reflected on how far I'd come in just 2 weeks before. I would have rushed to fix everything immediately, no questions asked. Now I was approaching the crisis with clarity and purpose. Whatever happened next, I had already achieved something monumental. I had broken the automatic pattern of sacrificing myself for their comfort. Monday arrived. My stomach churned with nerves as I logged into the video conference for the meeting. The financial advisor's office appeared on my screen, a polished room. With a large oak table, my parents sat on one side, looking worn and anxious. My dad's face was pale, his posture stiff. My mum clutched a tissue, her eyes red and puffy. Emily sat between them, unusually quiet, dressed conservatively instead of her usual trendy style. Seeing them like that stirred something in me. Despite everything, they were still my family, and I still loved them. Robert, the financial advisor, began with a calm, professional tone. "I've reviewed the documents your parents provided," he said. "Let's start with a summary of your current situation." For the next 20 minutes, he laid out the numbers in simple, unemotional terms. Their retirement fund had been nearly emptied, with heavy tax penalties for early withdrawal. The second mortgage carried unfavorable terms because of how quickly they'd applied. Emily's business was improperly incorporated, leaving my parents personally liable for many expenses. When he added it all up, the total deficit was about $140,000. If no action is taken, Robert warned, foreclosure proceedings could begin within 3 to 4 months, and there are not enough retirement assets left to support your parents' future income needs. My mum sobbed quietly. My dad stared at the table, silent. Emily's face was pale, her eyes shining with tears. The reality had finally sunk in. Robert distributed folders containing the possible solutions. I had helped him prepare. "I'll step out now so you can discuss as a family," he said. Leaving us alone on the call, the silence was thick. Finally, my mum looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. "You just disappeared," she said, trembling. 2 weeks without a word. "We thought something terrible had happened." "Something terrible did happen," I replied quietly, my voice steady. "At that dinner, I realized the truth about my place in this family," Dad said. "Emily was the one with the bright future. You told me my college fund had been spent on her activities without my knowledge, and when I refused to empty my savings for another one of her ventures, you called me selfish and ungrateful." My dad shifted uncomfortably. "We were upset," he said quickly. "People say things they don't mean in the heat of the moment." I met his gaze through the screen. Maybe, when emotions run high, people finally say what they really believe. Neither of them responded. I took a deep breath and continued. I needed space to figure out if I wanted to keep participating in a family dynamic where my worth is based solely on what I can provide, rather than who I am. "That's not fair," my mum protested weakly. "Isn't it?" I countered. "When was the last time either of you asked about my dreams, my goals, my happiness? When Emily came to you with her startup idea, you invested your retirement fund without hesitation. When I told you about my plan to open a financial consulting practice, Dad dismissed it as something that could wait because Emily's needs were always more urgent." I paused, letting my words sink in. "They always have been." Emily finally spoke, her voice cracking. "You were right about everything," she admitted, tears rolling down her cheeks. "The business plan was weak. The market was saturated. I didn't understand the technology. I wanted so badly to succeed at something, to make you all proud. You could have succeeded, I said gently, if you'd started small. With proper planning and realistic expectations, I wanted to help you do that. But instead, you accused me of jealousy and sabotage. I know, Emily whispered. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I never thought it would come to this. I never thought Mum and Dad would risk everything. My dad tried to comfort her. That was our decision. Don't blame yourself. But I couldn't let that slide. That's exactly the problem, I said firmly. Emily takes risks without considering consequences. You and Mum remove every obstacle. Shield her from failure and then expect me to fix the damage. And somehow, I'm the bad guy when I won't play along. My mum wiped her eyes, her voice breaking. We never meant to make you feel unappreciated. We just always knew you'd be okay because you're so capable, so responsible. Emily seemed like she needed more support. Did she need more support? I asked quietly. Or did your extra attention create someone who can't function without it? My dad looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Where are you, Sarah? He asked, his voice softer now. Will you come home and help us sort this out? I swallowed hard. I'm in Seattle, I said. His eyes widened in shock. I've taken a position with a financial firm here and rented an apartment. Asterisk. I'm building a new life, one where my worth isn't measured by how useful I am to others. You moved across the country without telling us. My mum gasped. Yes, I said simply. I needed a clean break to gain perspective. I straightened my shoulders and spoke clearly. I'm willing to help you through this crisis, but this time there will be conditions. The three of them exchanged nervous glances. What conditions? My dad asked cautiously. The room went silent. Even through the computer screen, I could feel their tension. My parents sat rigidly, my mum clutching her tissues so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Emily's eyes were wide and glassy, as if she were holding her breath. They weren't used to me having conditions. They were used to me swooping in quietly, fixing everything, and then fading into the background without complaint. Not this time. I took a deep breath and steadied my voice. Here's how this is going to work, I began calmly, though my heart was pounding. First, I will not be handing over a lump sum of money. I am not here to rescue anyone blindly. If I contribute financially, it will be done through a legal agreement, like a structured loan, with clear repayment terms and interest. There will be a written contract, no exceptions. My dad opened his mouth to protest, but I held up my hand. Second, I continued, all financial decisions from this point forward must go through Robert, the advisor we met with today. No more secret withdrawals, no more surprise mortgages, no more impulsive decisions. Every choice must be approved by him and documented properly. Emily's lips trembled. That makes sense, she said quietly. It was the first time I'd ever heard her agree to boundaries without a fight. I nodded, then turned to my parents. Third, there will be transparency. I will have full access to your financial statements, retirement accounts, loan documents, everything. You've kept me in the dark for too long, and it ends now. My mum flinched at that, but she didn't argue. Fourth, I said, my voice softening slightly, we're going to address the emotional side of this, not just the financial side. I've already spoken to a family therapist who specializes in high conflict dynamics. I'm willing to pay for the first 6 months of sessions, but all three of you have to commit to attending weekly. This isn't optional. If you refuse, I'm done. My mum gasped softly. Therapy? We don't need therapy, Sarah. We need money. You need both, I interrupted firmly. Money alone won't fix this. The patterns that got you here are deeper than numbers. If those patterns don't change, no amount of financial help will matter. Emily nodded tearfully. She's right, Mum, she whispered. I've been so used to you and Dad bailing me out that I never learned how to handle failure. I want to change. I need to change. Her honesty made my chest ache. For the first time, I saw her not as the golden child, but as a scared young woman who had been set up to fail by unrealistic expectations, hers and theirs. My mum's face crumpled, and she began to cry again. "Oh, baby," she sobbed. Reaching for Emily's hand, my dad sat back, silent and pale, like someone who'd finally seen the damage done. I gave them a moment, then spoke again. "Finally, this is my last condition," I said, my voice steady. "After we stabilize your finances and start therapy, I will be stepping back. I'll guide you through the process and set you up for success. But I won't be your permanent safety net. This is about building a future where you can stand on your own, not one where you're constantly leaning on me." I let my words hang in the air, heavy and final. "This is your only chance to fix things. If you agree to these conditions, I'll help. If you don't, you'll need to figure this out without me." My dad was the first to speak, his voice hoarse. "You're right," he said quietly, surprising me. His pride had always been a fortress, but now it seemed to have crumbled. "We've relied on you too much. I've relied on you too much. When you left, it was like a bucket of cold water over my head. I saw how unfair we've been to you." He swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. "I don't want to lose our home, Sarah. But more than that, I don't want to lose you. If these are the terms, we accept them." My mum nodded through tears. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you until you were gone. I don't want to be that kind of mother anymore." Emily reached for the camera, as if she could reach through the screen and hug me. "I'll go to therapy. I'll rebuild my life step by step, the right way this time. But Sarah, thank you for giving me another chance." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let my voice waver. "This isn't about me giving you another chance," I said gently. "This is about all of us giving ourselves a chance to grow and heal. But remember, healing is work. It won't happen overnight." They all nodded, their expressions solemn. For the first time, I felt like they truly heard me. Over the next few weeks, we got to work. Robert helped restructure the mortgage, lowering the payments and stopping foreclosure. My parents sold off some valuables and cut unnecessary expenses to rebuild a small emergency fund. I loaned them $20,000, not enough to fix everything, but enough to provide stability while they adjusted. And true to my word, there was a contract. Every penny was documented, with a clear repayment schedule. The loan wasn't just money, it was a symbol of a new way of doing things. The therapy sessions were rocky. At first up, my dad struggled with admitting vulnerability. My mum cried through nearly every meeting. Emily alternated between defensiveness and self-blame. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. For the first time, we had real conversations about boundaries, favoritism, and the ways we had hurt each other. It wasn't easy. Some sessions ended in shouting, others in silence, but there were also breakthroughs, moments where we truly understood one another. During one session, my mum turned to me and said, "I realize now that calling you selfish was just me projecting my own guilt. You were never selfish, Sarah. You were just tired of carrying us all." The words healed something deep inside me. I didn't forgive her completely in that moment, but I began to believe forgiveness was possible. Back in Seattle, my life blossomed in ways I never imagined. I started my new job at Cascade Financial, working with clients who respected my expertise. Olivia and I grew closer, becoming like sisters in a way that felt healthy and balanced. I continued sailing on weekends, my favorite form of escape, and slowly I began to save again, not for my family, not for emergencies, but for myself, for my own dream of opening a consulting firm one day. 6 months after the crisis, Emily called me on a Sunday afternoon. Her voice was brighter than I'd heard in years. Guess what? I got a job at a local marketing agency. I'm starting at the bottom, but I'm excited to learn, and I've been paying back the loan every month, just like we agreed. Pride swelled in my chest. Emily, that's incredible. I'm proud of you. Thanks, she said softly. And Sarah, I'm proud of you too, for walking away when you needed to, for showing me what real responsibility looks like. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sun set over the Seattle skyline. My phone buzzed with a text from my dad. Your mom and I went to therapy today. It was hard, but good. We love you. We're grateful you didn't give up on us. I smiled through tears. For the first time in my life, my family wasn't just taking from me. They were giving back. In their own way, looking back, I realized something important. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family isn't to fix everything. Sometimes the most loving thing is to step away long enough for everyone to face the truth by leaving. I gave them the space to grow, and by setting boundaries, I finally gave myself the chance to live. As the city lights twinkled below, I whispered to myself, this is what freedom feels like. And for the first time, I truly believed it.